When you think about Chicago, what comes to mind? The Magnificent Mile, deep dish pizza, Lake Michigan, Chicago-style hot dogs, and then some other things, like Al Capone. But as a real Chicagoan, I know that our city has so much more to offer. I'm Rob Foytik, and I lead neighborhood tourism at Choose Chicago, the city's official tourism bureau and destination marketing organization, which basically means I get to work with residents all over the city to promote the best parts of where they live. I've eaten deep dish downtown, had a cocktail in the sky, and enjoyed a hot dog, no ketchup, in the friendly confines. But past the well-trodden downtown areas, I've found some of the real places driving our culinary narrative. From the Puerto Rican family making Jibarritos, to the neighborhood legend who's been making donuts by hand for the last 50 years. These are the places that have actually enabled us to become the culinary capital of the country. Since food is such a natural entry point into culture, we'll use these delicious bites, holes in the wall, and hidden gems to learn the complicated history of some of our city's 77 neighborhoods. And meet the people who make these areas beyond downtown must-visit cultural destinations. Let me take you on a journey to the 77. When I think about must-dos in Chicago's neighborhoods, two deeply historic, intertwined, and often overlooked neighborhoods immediately come to mind: Pullman and Roseland. Pullman was once called the world's most perfect town, with neighboring Roseland boasting a vibrant shopping district. And today, this area hosts Chicago's only national park. Both neighborhoods are part of a very Chicago history, where industries like rail and steel have defined economic highs, disinvestment has caused economic lows, and new initiatives are shaping the future of how we build our neighborhoods. So why have so many Chicagoans never spent a day exploring Pullman and Roseland? Our journey begins with a good old-fashioned taste of the neighborhood. This Michigan Avenue might be a bit of a trek from the Magnificent Mile you're used to, but down on 111th Street is a business that's been here for 50 years, where 85-year-old Bert Bullock still makes the donuts by hand. And guess what? They're delicious. Come on, let's get some more.
Old-fashioned donuts is just the place where you can bring the family, the kids. You want some good donuts, old-fashioned donuts is the place to come.
The best donut in the United States of America. I was just here yesterday.
I like the texture, the flavor. They melt in your mouth. You can't find these just anywhere. You're getting a piece of the community that's always been here. So I think people have come not only to love it, but they respect him and this establishment.
Which here are your favorite donuts?
The glaze, top of the line, that'll bring you back.
Yeah.
My name's Burrett L. Bullock, and I'm Donut King. I work 6 days a week, half a day on a Sunday. If I stay busy, I got another 10 years ahead of me.
He's there every day. My father never missed a day.
After you reach a certain age, you don't want to sit, do nothing.
I heard him say, if he stops, he'll die. He always act like, well, my customers need me.
We love him very dearly.
It's a pillar in the neighborhood. And I've been here for 40 years, watching Mr. Bullock 3, 4 o'clock in the morning, preparing his donuts. We sit there just watching him like it was a movie. He always had a smile on his face, just like he had music playing. But it's just the sound of the donuts to him. He inspired a lot of people to get up every day and do what you love.
Good donuts are created from the right amount of humidity. I mastered it.
Yeah? I'd say definitely perfect on these ones.
I've been here since 45 years. You still have a business that have survived this community from different changes that has happened. That means a great deal. A great deal.
Definitely the community surroundings has changed, but the wonderful thing is this place has remained the same. It just gives signals to the rest of the community that, yeah, this community can make it and will get better.
I think I did something excellent in life. I got to know a lot of people. They keep coming back, and everything that they had for me they enjoyed, so that brings them back.
Yeah, it's been a long time.
They call them good old days.
And what the great days.
As long as Michigan Avenue is open, people gonna come for donuts. October the 5th, I'll be 85.
I'm chasing you. I'm chasing you. I just parked and came.
You came in.
So I can see you. I said I was going to purchase a donut. I got to. I want one glaze. Just keep it.
Thank you. When I was a little girl, I used to be a little embarrassed to say, well, my father's a baker. But now I'll scream it to the top of my lungs. You can't stop me from grinning now. My sister and I, we aren't going anywhere. I'm constantly just thinking or trying to improve things. I wouldn't change the recipe, though. That's our secret.
Everybody knows the tuna, man. They're all my friends, you know. If you come to Old Fashioned, it's the real deal.
You don't just go to Old Fashioned Donuts for the donut, right? As a Chicago historian, why are so many people going there?
Because that space has been an anchoring space for Roseland for close to 50 years. They remind us that something's been there for a long time and something's going to be there. Kind of like this place we're in now, right? We're in a very historic Pullman home.
And if people don't know a lot about Pullman and Roseland, right? These are two different neighborhoods, but we talk about them sometimes together. What's the basic history people should know about these places?
They share a history. Both been around for a very long time, pre-Chicago fire. Roseland finds its origin from the Dutch. So at one point in the city's history, it was the number 2 shopping district behind State Street. And then Pullman is established right about the top of 1881, beautifully designed by an architect by the name of Solomon Beeman. Pullman is named for George Mortimer Pullman. He's the guy that invented sleeping cars for trains. And so this neighborhood was where the folks who worked at the Pullman Train Car Company lived.
Pullman National Historical Park is a very special place on the far south side of Chicago where we tell the stories of transportation, labor history, urban planning. It is a living community within a national park where you can connect the past to today. There is something about the design of Pullman that draws people in. George Pullman had this idea to create rail cars that were luxurious and comfortable for people. And for the first time, people who lived on the East Coast could move their families in a way that was safe and it was comfortable and it was quick. A philosophy that if he built this very beautiful town with a pleasant living environment, that he would have happier workers and that they would be more productive. It was dubbed as the world's most perfect town because innovations like this steam-powered engine that powered the factory site, but he also used the steam from that engine to heat some of the houses that were closest to the factory. The homes had skylights in them. This helped to save on energy costs. They all had indoor plumbing, flushing toilets, running water. They had bathtubs in the houses, which was really, really unique for that time period. But he was a businessman, first and foremost.
He built the town because he wanted to ensure that the people who worked for him were ready when he needed them. He owned the stores, he owned the hospital, he owned the bank, he owned the housing. And so when he paid the people who worked for him, the money went in a full circle, but it came back to him.
As a result of an economic recession, George Pullman laid some of his workers off. He had to reduce some of their hours, but he refused to reduce their rents. So by the time employees paid their rent, they had just mere pennies left in their paycheck, and their families were going hungry, and they finally decided, we can't stand for this anymore. They decided to go on strike. The Pullman strike of 1894 was a watershed moment in the American labor movement. It was the first time that a large union had gone on strike, resulting in this interstate shutdown of the railways, stopping the shipment of goods and services and the mail. It was the first time that the labor movement really got the attention of the federal government. And there were 13 people here in Chicago who were killed when the federal government stepped in. And as a result of the strike, we now have a National Labor Day holiday to commemorate what had happened here in Chicago.
But the infamous Pullman strike did not include the Pullman porters. Pullman porters were African Americans who were the onboard crew on the Pullman sleeping cars. George Pullman chose specifically newly freed slaves who worked in the house because they were skilled in hospitality and because they knew how to serve.
The Pullman porters are historically recognized as the first middle-class job for African Americans. In a world that doesn't see you as equal, you gotta be real astute and smart to be able to navigate that. Instead of paying Pullman porters dollar for dollar what they were paying others, they would advocate for the customers to leave tips. The concept of leaving a tip comes from the Pullman train car company.
They made more money in tips than they were paid through the Pullman company. So they began to realize their value when their tips kept growing, but they had no protection. None of the other unions would admit African Americans. So they decided to start their own union, and it took them a very long time.
The Pullman porters had to, struggle another 40 years after the Pullman strike in order to become a ratified union. When you delve into the Pullman story, you realize that it's about the opportunity and having access to the American dream.
They were the first Black labor union to be chartered. They were the first to win a collective bargaining agreement with a major U.S. corporation. They opened the doors to millions of Black and brown people in every trade union in America.
When the Pullman porters negotiate for their own wages, that was teaching others across the country that that fight could be fought for everyone, no matter their ethnicity.
The tagline of the Brotherhood of Sleeping Car Porters Union was service, not servitude. It's not just a photo of a smiling Black man bending over serving someone. It's a different narrative. They were strong men who made a conscious decision that in order to obtain what they needed, they had to be unified.
The Pullman porters also, I guess the word would be humanize African Americans for others, because if you're from the rural South and you don't have a lot of experience with African Americans and the only thing you know is the stereotypes that have been pushed in your face, well, now you see this Pullman porter on the train that's able to help you get a good night's sleep when your baby's crying, or you drop your wallet and the Pullman porter returns it back to you, right? If you are lost and you're getting on the wrong train, it's the Pullman porters that direct you. And that, over a course of time, starts to humanize African Americans and place us on a level playing field.
Pullman and Roseland. Can't tell one story without telling the other. And so when Pullman was designated as a historic area, Roseland should have also been included. At one time, it was known as a shopping mecca. So there's a lot of value here that we have unfortunately taken for granted, because our minds have been swelled by the negative.
Chicago police statistics show that the Roseland neighborhood has had more violent crime than any other section of Chicago.
And then you have people that were just left here with no investment, no infrastructure, no transportation. It just became a desert of many sorts. We see it acted out every day throughout the city of Chicago, not just in Roseland.
In the late 1940s, we suffered from a thing called white flight. And so what we today would refer to as like white ethnic groups, they start to move out of the Roseland area. The businesses start to leave the Roseland area. We don't see the burgeoning jobs there anymore. We start to deindustrialize as a city. And so you couple all those things and you end up with disinvestment. You end up with a space that had beautiful architecture, now has vacant lots. And then you couple that with the returning from World War II African Americans who are wanting to use their GI Bills to purchase housing. But then once they're there, they're redlined. Redlining meaning that they did not qualify for governmentally backed loans for their houses and for their businesses. That all plays a part in what you see in Roseland today.
And a lot of those things that residents are feeling through that disinvestment over the years, other folks, right, are hearing and thinking about the community and thinking it's true. And it really hurts the narrative about Chicago and the South Side and Roseland.
You know, imagine you're a kid growing up in that, and you're very hopeful and very bright, and you want to achieve certain things, and then you being from Roseland affects how people treat you outside of Roseland, and then the opportunities that exist or could exist in Roseland are affected because of that negative connotation that comes from that historic disinvestment.
Things have started to shift in Pullman, where one organization has taken an unconventional approach to investment. Focused on the South Side, Chicago Neighborhood Initiatives seeks to redevelop neighborhoods in ways that help the community rather than displace them.
Our neighborhoods really didn't get this way in 5 years or 10 years. It's been 40 years of consistent disinvestment. So this work takes literally generations of consistent reinvestment and consistent new investment before you start to see the needle move significantly. We believe all communities have inherent assets and really see as our job to leverage those assets, to amplify them, to use them as the building blocks to then redevelop the neighborhood. In Pullman, we bought the former Ryerson Steel site with the intent of using more of a community planning process to inform our decision-making around what ultimately got built there. So we took an entire year. We did 70 community meetings. We went to every church group and block club, civic organization, and basically just took input. There were 4 kind of key things that the community identified that they wanted to see happen on that site. The first was the need for access to healthy food. People living here in Pullman and Roseland literally had to travel 5 miles